How many more
I was
people
surprised.
How many more people you gonna intimidate?
Villegas, Jeanette, fucking.
No, Cardona, not Villegas.
No, you got to stay with him too. I didn't
No,
read the letter.
No, I'm talking.
Oh, right.
I'm talking about the people.
Right, I was that he bothered. Yeah, I was
Even Teleferro. He went up to had shit to Teleferro. Teleferro was ready to kick his ass.
But to watch Jason ass, he was threatening Jason. And then Jason punk ass, like big ass. Yo, when you get scared, Jason. I mean, I know why.
I mean, we all know why.
Right. I mean, I'm just saying, but it looks so horrible, right? You know what I mean? Like you get punked on TV.
And the air good. Okay.
That's perfect.
All right. So I'm gonna go ahead.
And there's no break, right?
No.
We can talk, and we on a.
I mean, if you need to.
No.
Yeah.
I just like to. Well, for me, I just like to make sure that I know we're going straight through.
Okay. Yeah. We value your time, so yeah, we plan to just go straight.
And so we're in back room. We are live now. So we are live. We give people a few minutes to come on in. We'll start at 6 o'clock.
Do you have a link? You want me to put this up?
Yeah.
Or
off our Facebook off my Facebook page.
What's
or
off yours?
Yeah, mine should be on there. Check that out. This is great. We got a promo next time too, man. We're gonna do this like 2-3 times a week. It should be live on my page too.
Let me just hit live.
Yeah.
Do you have a Wi-Fi here? I should have did that for you. Oh, actually. Are we live right now?
No. Yes. No, it don't look like it. Let's see.
Yeah, you're live. It says it.
Let's see it on Facebook.
And your guy managing the comments, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see.
Or if you could do it on yours, just tag me and it'll show up on my
Okay. Yeah. I'm trying to say work out the kinks because I don't think that looks like YouTube live. It's live, but did he? I don't think all the destinations are.
All right, you all, Chicago, show up. We are live. Share this live. Share this live. Share this live. Everybody in the city, share this live.
Let me take a quick look at this here. Oh, yeah. It should be on the Black American Voters Project. Let's see. Yeah.
There we go. I found myself.
TikToker, those of you that are watching, double tap the screen.
Worst
We need
case.
as many people on this live as we need to get in to get this information. We have Alderman Raymond Lopez here in the office while we respect his time, while we have his time, while he's decided to come out and share valuable information with us. Let's share this live, get as many people out here as we need. Also, double tap the screen. Double tap the screen, get these likes up. That's how we get this information out.
This one, it was just on there. Give me a few more seconds. We are on live. Hello, everyone. Anybody watching? Give us a few seconds to get it going here. It looks like it's our first broadcast. So give us a few minutes, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. I see a few of you all here now. Give me a few minutes. Oh, we are live now. Okay, look at that.
We are live.
Everybody. Thanks for tuning in. All right. Let me turn that down. We're just checking the little statics here on the Black American Voters Project page. Great. Let me share this right quick to our pages. So
To all you watching live, I shared it on my page, share it on yours.
Absolutely, you all. It's gonna be a great conversation, as you know. Let's get ready to go. Let me put it on my page. Get some more people in here. And switch back. Yeah, so that's a lot going on in Chicago. What am I doing here?
On a 60-degree Sunday.
Yes,
Right.
absolutely.
God help us, please.
Absolutely.
I said,
And one of the last ones we're gonna have, right?
some nice weather today.
Man, if I were trick or treating, I'd be mad today.
Actually had my grandbaby out on Halloween, and it was cold. So, you know, good stuff. Let me dump it on this page for people to start calling me. I don't think my page is live. I'm gonna share it on here. Share it live, or if you're on YouTube, appreciate you for calling. It's the first episode of Black Political Journal. With many to go, we will have many guests and many hosts talking about issues inside Chicago and Illinois. Let's see here. Paste. All right.
They need just one button.
Right.
Share to all pages.
Well,
and then
It really is. And to be honest, I don't know why it's not. You see those little things at the top? It's actually a great tool, right? But why it's not, I
I
don't
blame
know.
Elon Musk.
And right, but we're trying to get it done. I don't know why it's not broadcasting all the different things, but as long as we got them on our pages, we'll have it going. Yep. Let me turn my phone down. They'll be here. I had to get it on my page first because we were supposed to be broadcasting. It's a great tool. I don't know if you ever use StreamYard, but it's actually broadcast to 10 different outlets at the same time.
Oh, well.
So we're trying to build all
Exciting.
those platforms out and get those stuff
Just
going.
what we need. Raymond Lopez on 10 channels.
On 10 channels. And it can be, Twitter, whatever. I didn't even know Twitter had a live. I'm 54 years old, so I'm trying to learn all these things here. So,
Don't worry.
that's
she
where
got
we're
you
at.
covered.
Yeah, there we go. So we're all good, y'all. We're all good.
Yep, let's roll.
So people get it. All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in today on this Sunday evening. We have a great guest here and a lot of information in store for you. I'm Brian Mullins, and this is the Black Political Journal. This is our first broadcast. If you guys remember, I was a part of the Black Table and the Brutus and Brian show, and have been around Chicago and politics for about 30 years in some capacity. So we just want to start to talk to our people, produce shows so we can have our own content with accurate information, not what you see on the news necessarily, not what you hear through the grapevine, not what you see on other Facebook feeds and all that. We want to bring accurate information as to what has happened in Illinois and Chicago, especially this week, as we discuss the Sanctuary City initiative, a ballot referendum initiative, as well as other dealings in the city of Chicago, especially this city council. Most of you have probably seen by now or heard that it was a rocket city council. Actually, they call it the council in chaos, or, on channels on ABC News. And that was pretty cool to see this whole crazy environment. So just we start out a little bit and talk about, what some of the things that are going on. So we have Sanctuary City here in Illinois, and we have one in Chicago. The Sanctuary City Ordinance was passed in 1983. Is that correct? Or 87? 87 with Harold Washington and the Harold Washington administration. And one thing I want to point out before I introduce my guest is that the Sanctuary City Ordinance was not including financial support. So that's going to be interesting because something to point out, because I believe the public and most people believe that there's a tie between housing and food and education and Sanctuary City Ordinance, which was not intended, and nobody probably believed in 1987 that this would be the outcome. So sitting next to me is 15th Ward Alderman Raymond Lopez, and he is a ferocious fighter for the people of Chicago and American citizens inside Chicago. And Alderman Lopez, first introduce yourself, say stuff about, what you have going on.
Well, first off, thank you for getting the sweater memo
Yes.
We
And
came
you know,
time.
yes, usually I have a t-shirt issue.
I
I'm
know.
trying to grow up. We're trying to grow up.
Doing good. But I'm Alderman Raymond Lopez. Shout out to my neighborhoods in West Englewood, Gage Park, Canaryville, Back of the Yards, Brighton Park, and Chicago Lawn. I've been an alderman since 2015, and quite frankly, keeping it real, straight no chaser, for 3 terms now. I represent African Americans, Latinos, focusing on what we have in common, and we all want the same thing. We all want communities where our children can be safe, where you can find jobs in the neighborhood, and where you can sit on your porch without getting shot just for enjoying the view.
Absolutely.
We've seen that fight at City Hall, and even now as the progressive left pushes forward with their agendas, we're trying to make sure that Chicagoans aren't forgotten. With this migrant crisis or any crisis, none of us should be forgotten. And, to quote Mayor Johnson, there's more than enough to go around.
Right.
So be it.
Sorry.
Prove it.
Right.
So let's get it passed around and help all our neighborhoods. And we're going to do that starting by getting back to the basics, which is getting the truth out there. You're saying you've been doing these shows
Sure.
for 30 years. I remember being on the Butt Naked Truth
Absolutely.
when I first got involved in politics. This is the best way to reach the people because everybody watches, everybody listens, and most importantly, everybody remembers.
Absolutely. And Harold Davis was a good friend of mine.
Yeah.
I was on his show multiple times, shows and rolling with Harold Davis, and he's missed. I would love to bring back his brand. Like I've talked about with a few people, like that would be a great thing because he gave straight no chaser. Right. And it's how we're going to do. And, it's funny because, I carry myself as a foundational Black American, an American freedman. And you all who know me, we use those terms because it's the legal term of our people. It breaks it down into a unified effort, and it allows us to fight for resources for a specific group of people. So, we be labeled right wing. I'm labeled all kind of stuff. I've been, called pretty much every name in the book, and I believe it's going to increase. So be clear, it's going to increase as we go forward in our efforts. Right.
We need another book.
Right. But as you can see, I'm sitting here with a Hispanic alderman because it's not about race like this. It's about being a Chicagoan, being an American, and fighting for resources for everyone. And we all fight in our silos, but it's time to come together and unify around, like the alderman said, about our collective need to take care of Chicago citizens. So, let me start off a little bit and talk about, maybe I'll let you kind of lead in these scenarios. Can you explain? I talked about the sanctuary city not being financial on that part, because I think that's a misunderstanding. Somehow it's conflated like this is a need for both. And I heard a lot of people kind of try to pull it apart over the last couple of days, right? So could you expound a little bit on that, and even the state law? I'm sure you're versed in that. And
Sure.
one more thing. Why are there only people coming to Chicago compared to out Illinois if Illinois is a sanctuary state?
All good questions. So if you go back to when Harold Washington was mayor, he put out an executive order, making Chicago a welcoming city, basically stating in very simple terms that, the Chicago government would not work with the federal government against individuals who were here without papers, who were undocumented.
Right.
And over the years that became a law. It went from executive order to municipal code and was changed by Rahm, but he restricted it where we would only work with the federal authorities if you were a criminal, had outstanding warrants, violent things of that nature. And then Lori Lightfoot, in her great wisdom, took away all those carve-outs and said,
right,
we don't care what you do
right,
while you're here.
Right.
We're just glad you're
Thanks,
here.
Lori.
Yeah, thanks, Lori.
Right.
Glad you're going.
Right, that's why she's not here. Right.
But what we've seen is that all of that was really an academic exercise as the federal government continued to fail in addressing the broken immigration system since 1987.
Correct.
Because that executive order by Harold Washington went into effect in response to the fact that we had immigration run amok. Yeah. And that was just before Ronald Reagan signed the act that granted amnesty to everyone that was here without any kind of papers, that was not here legally, to give Congress the opportunity to hit the reset. Well, 34 decades later, they still screwed it up.
Right.
Immigration's out of control. Right. With regards to 4 million people crossing the border October to October this year alone.
Exactly.
2.3 we know about, 1.6 we don't.
Right.
But we know that they're here. Right. And the border states said, you know what? You guys in your sanctuary cities that keeps telling people keep coming, we'll help you.
Right.
You know what? Here they are.
You can have them.
And at first it started as a political stunt from DeSantis and
Yep.
Abbott sending them here.
Yep.
And I remember Lori, again, we have to do a shot every time we bring
Right,
her in.
right.
But Lori, thought that if she threatened them
Right.
that they were going
I
to
remember.
stop, they didn't. They sent more buses.
Yep.
And they've been sending them here by the thousands every week
Right.
because we have this policy in place that says we're going to welcome everybody.
Right.
Now, Sanctuary City does not mention one lick about having to be the foster parents of anyone who's here.
Correct.
Not saying that we have to take care of them, not saying we have to feed them, clothe them, house them.
Right.
None of that's in there. It just says that we are not going to work with the federal government against you. But the Southern Republican governor started sending them here. Then Biden started sending them here.
Right.
Then the Democratic governor started sending them here because they all changed their policies
Right.
to stop the buses.
Correct.
But we didn't. We said, you know what?
Right.
We're going to stay open and welcoming at the state, county, and city level.
Right.
Now we come to where we were last week
Right.
to give voters a chance to say, do you want to stay a sanctuary city? Do you want to remain a magnet for the politics
Correct.
that's failing all around us?
Correct.
And that's where that meeting went sideways. But the
Right.
question is, if all of this is at the state level,
Right.
why isn't the state shouldering any of the burden also?
Absolutely.
Why are the other 101 counties
Correct.
not welcoming these individuals?
Correct.
Why is it all on Chicago taxpayers? Why is it all on our resources? Why is it all on our neighborhoods
Absolutely.
to have to absorb these individuals? That's the question.
That's the question. And so we're trying to educate people as we're going through these things. I attended a Center for Immigration Studies school in DC maybe about a month ago. And I learned more about immigration than I cared to know. And I just want to point out to the audience what's happened and what's been happening is changes of terms, what they mean at different levels of government. I mean, you have illegal immigrants and refugees and asylum seekers and migrants, and each one of those terms carry a certain designation within government for what how they allow to move,
Yep.
if they get green cards, can they work in the areas, and now do they have access to resources? So it's a game being played, and in my opinion, it's at the federal level by changing these terms to fit, in my opinion, a political narrative and what's happening in our country at the same time to justify all these things, right? And I think the state statutes kind of mirror those things. So we keep changing terms to fit whatever the political narrative is. If even in Chicago, it started out as undocumented, I think then it went to asylum migrants, then asylum seekers, right? And I don't know. And then that's what allowed the governor and the mayor to start to do job training and trying to get people work permits. So we kind of move the ball down the line by, again, changing the narrative and changing the terms to fit it compared to be an honest immigration effort. So I am for true immigration reform in America. I think it needs to be done the right way. And we need to get it done quickly. So all these efforts, I believe, should lead to true immigration reform, whatever that looks like. Now we can go later. I do believe there's a bigger problem going on in the country, and in underlying it is labor movements and all other kind of things. As a foundational Black Americans, we need to be cognizant of all these underlying things that's happening in the country and the world that are affecting what you're seeing in the city. Why are people coming here? Why are they getting jobs? Why are they holding migrant job fairs when we know African Americans don't have jobs in Chicago now? And so our issue on our side is to keep pushing that, because we are the ones that are bearing the brunt after 30 years or 40 years in Chicago. Most of us have lived here in Chicago. We've seen CHA torn down. We have seen CHA torn down. We've seen these other things happen. So what we're trying to do is to go ahead and explain, what are we seeing today? So, Alderman, would you like to?
And let me just add
Yeah,
this
go
too,
ahead. Sure.
because this is where, they keep trying to, the progressive lakefront liberal left keeps trying to make this a thing of Black versus
Correct.
brown on this immigration, on the migrant
Right.
asylum seekers. And
Right.
it's not,
Right.
because of the fact that everything you just said
Yeah.
applies to all of the individuals who are already here,
Correct.
waiting for some sort of hope or resolution for their immigration status.
Yeah.
They were here first. They came here. They've been waiting. They've gone through the process. And now they've seen thousands, actually millions of people
nationwide.
claim asylum on the grounds that they want to work.
Absolutely.
Work is not grounds for
Absolutely.
asylum, because if that were the
Absolutely.
case,
Right.
there'd be millions of individuals who should have been granted asylum. But
Yep.
rather than address that issue, the federal government, to your point,
Mhm.
is figuring out how to prop the window open rather
Right.
than fix the front door.
Right. And when that comes with foundational Black Americans, I mean, we come from, if we were here before as Native Black Native Blacks before America, if it's coming through the slave trade, however our ancestors got here. For me, I get angry when I'm thinking we are letting millions of people in, and so far 25,000 or so in Chicago that are getting the resources that we've been asking for decades for our own community. And in addition to that, Alderman, I feel like we shouldn't let people get the exact same status and resources of American citizens who have been hurting all these years. So we got to kind of at some point talk about that or figure out what that looks like, because it's unfair.
Brian, we don't even have to talk about decades. Let's just talk about this year.
Right.
Let's talk about a tale of two declarations of emergency.
Right.
One was the migrant, upon which Mayor Johnson and company said we're going to spend $250 million this year to help them.
Right.
And let's go back to the West Side, which on July 2nd had to deal with flash flooding that destroyed furnaces, hot water tanks, and left basements filled with mold.
Right.
We fronted the money to help pay for the migrants' needs for that declaration. How much money do you think we fronted to the West Side? They go zero.
See, and that's what we're talking about. It's access to government resources. Some people be like, oh, you all are begging the government and all this. No, we ask on our side for equity. Now, equity to the left doesn't mean equity in the real world. For us, equity means we are in Chicago, we're 30% of the population. So we're 29 or so. So we're asking, we want jobs, contracts, economic opportunity, employment opportunity to go to our communities on the south and the west side of Chicago. And that can be done, right? And that's what we're fighting for in the council and things, down the line. Sorry, Alderman.
We have fought for that.
Yeah.
Two mayors now.
Absolutely. And to be honest, Alderman Lopez introduced an ordinance for us probably 3 years or so ago now, ADOS resolution asking that the city procurement, we get 30%, not Black, not minority, but just Black. And we were calling ourselves American descendants of slavery at the time, slaves at the time, under the ADOS brand. And that was for specific. So what that does, it moves everything from a race. So minority contractors, as minority, white women get the majority of their contract, and then we all fight, for crumbs. But imagine getting 30% to a specific group that lives on the south and west side of Chicago. So all this has been an ongoing fight. It's been a lot of nuances that take place throughout these times. But so Alderman, we're gonna go ahead and talk about why we're here, why this makes this so exciting. And so first, why don't you talk about what your ordinance was and how Bill came up with the referendum idea? So you have two different things that's on similar tracks. Can you explain to the people what those are?
As this discussion about migrants and being sanctuary and welcoming city has evolved, I introduced an ordinance that would put back some of the carve-outs that previously existed, so that if you were an undocumented individual right now, you could commit any crime and nothing will cause us to work with the federal government. I felt that was unacceptable, that there should be parameters to what we're willing to accept. And look, I'll be the first to say, first and foremost, I'm happy to have anyone who still believes in our country wants to come here.
Sure.
Absolutely. We still need to be that model for the rest of the world. But there are some people who we know come here not with the best of intentions. Absolutely. So we got to be able to weed them out. We got enough homegrown problems.
Right.
I don't need some other country's problems coming here. So Absolutely. The ordinance that I put in said that, we'll gladly be welcoming to any individual unless they choose to get involved with gangs, commit crimes with guns, prostitution, or sex crimes with minors.
Right.
We don't need those folks here.
Right.
Alderman Beal and Napolitano, I and a few others took it a step further and said, you know what? As this crisis continues, maybe we should just put the whole policy on the table.
Right.
And let Chicagoans have a say in an advisory referendum and just say, hey, Chicago, shall we remain a sanctuary city? You tell us what your thoughts are.
Right.
And that's where the mayor and his allies really lost their because they don't want you to have a say as to whether or not we remain, because they already know what the answer is going to be.
Right.
What they don't like is the fact that the demographics that they like pointing to, Black and brown all the time, are going to be the ones saying, put an end to it.
Right.
That's what they don't want to show, because then that's going to be the first time that we all really came together.
Right.
against what they don't want us to stop.
They are unifying Chicago at the end of the day, inadvertently. So we all know when this first came out a few months ago, what started to hit was I think it was $51 million. So there was a need to pay bills of $51 million. I think when the mayor first got in, that was the first time we all start to pay attention to it. Could you explain what that was for, kind of what happened and what we've learned since that point?
So originally when the mayor walked in, there was a $47 million owed to the contractors that were taking care of the migrants under the really bad contracts that Lori Lightfoot.
Absolutely. Lori Lightfoot again.
Signed us into.
Absolutely.
She thought this was going to be a crisis of a few months, so she didn't think long term.
Yep.
So that's why we're paying $195 for janitorial service right now.
Ridiculous. And they're not even from Chicago. A lot of the work, they're bringing in the workforce on top of it, if I'm correct.
Nobody's from Chicago.
How crazy is that? We're paying
Actually,
the
the same people bringing the migrants are bringing in the workers too.
Yes, and I want to point. So I'm sorry to interrupt you, Alderman, but that is exactly it. The same people who are bringing in the bus owners, the transportation companies, are the companies that are now being paid on the back end. How crazy is that, Chicago?
And that's your tax money.
But our tax dollars, absolutely.
So the first thing that we said in city council at that time was $51 million for what, and where's the plan? I think I famously stood up and said, show me the money. Where's the money going to that we're spending?
Yeah.
And here we are nearly 6 months into the term, still no plan, nothing but platitudes. They say it's on our website. It's just a very glossed over, feel good kind of website. But show me the specifics, show me the receipts, show me the invoices, show us something that explains what we're doing and tell us why we have to do it.
Right.
They don't want to have those conversations because they know that if we have those conversations, we're not going to like the answers.
Absolutely.
And the mayor's team finally acknowledged that by the end of this year, all bills are going to cost us $255 million for dealing with the migrant crisis.
255, you all. Can you hear that?
Put in comparison, that's almost exactly what we spend for all of streets and sanitation in the city of Chicago. That's 1/4 of what we spend on the police, roughly.
Absolutely.
Wait a minute. Can you repeat that? See, this is what I'm trying to explain. When I'm talking about the numbers, I'm a numbers person. I'm in taxes and accounting, right? And so this is what I have been yelling from the rooftop. This is fiscal irresponsibility with our tax dollars and money, right? And so again, as you're saying, this affects everybody, white, red, black, green, Asian. This is not a color thing.
Absolutely.
Every single one of us pay taxes every single day, whether you buying water, gas, food, clothes, right? So your dollars are being spent. So can you please repeat that last sentence that you just said with the amount of money that's being spent? Please, Alderman.
So the mayor has confirmed that we are going to be spending by the end of this year, 2023, $255 million on taking care of the migrants. 20,000 of them, by the way. 20,000 people are going to cost us $255 million. There are 56,000 people in a Chicago ward.
Right.
And no ward in Chicago do we spend $255 million.
Absolutely.
You're barely lucky if you get $1 million for your
per
residents,
ward.
per
Absolutely.
ward.
Yep.
But for this group who was sent here, we are spending $250 million, most of it going to companies not from our neighborhood, for people who are no better than when they got here.
Absolutely.
Because let's be honest, there are 3,000 people in police stations right now sleeping out in the cold.
Absolutely. And if you want to do it efficiently, I mean, if you go to employment, you could employ them at a lot less than $180 an hour, right?
You could have given them all a broom, told them all to go sweep the street the old-fashioned way, and we've gotten a better return on our investment than what we get right now.
So I'll say it, you all, that's called grift. We know somehow there's some fiscal irresponsibility, some shadiness, and it shows that contrary to what was sold in elections, there's no transparency at all from this administration, which in my opinion, and Alderman don't have to comment unless he wants to, then Rahm and Lori. It might be worse because at least they'll give you something, right? These guys, this administration has asked aldermen for, to give them places in their wards, right? But then they don't tell the aldermen what they're going to do. There's no transparency in these moves, which is why you see aldermen pushing back. We saw the 21st ward. We got the 10th city coming with Ronnie Mosley. And every alderman that we talk to, I don't care if it was Michelle Harrison, 8, Desmond Yancey in 5, Jeanette Taylor in 20, now Ronnie Mosley, and the same thing in the North Side wards. the administration is not coordinating and talking to them first. They're just gangstering and coming in saying, we're going to put this here. And then they deal with it from the back end. From the community standpoint, then they come in with these bogus community meetings that when the thing is already set, right? And Chicago is sick of this.
Like they did in Brighton Park.
Right.
They're bringing the 2,000 person tent shelter to my community where I live, 5 blocks from my house, by the way, but in my neighboring ward.
Right.
Say, oh, we're going to have a community meeting.
Right.
Who shows up? In a 150 seat auditorium, 100 CTU members.
CTU. And we know that, I'm sorry, Alden, but Jackson Potter put out a memo to the Chicago Teachers Union members to show up and support the mayor's administration. So, and I'm going to do a quick little sidebar. For those who don't know this, listen, Mayor Brandon Johnson worked for Chicago Teachers Union. He is part of the progressive left. So we got these Marxist, communist teachers union that's been rogue, working against the people for, election purposes. Decades. And this is a buildup. You have groups, we got SEIU, you got United Working Families, their political arm. They have been in this mode for a while. Now they're got their hands over the money, right? But their job is to create chaos. And this is why you may say, why didn't they stop crime? They don't want to stop crime because they want it to fall apart so they can build it back up in their version of democracy and equity. But I tell you what, you all, it does not include us at all because their plans are not for us. And I'll say this, Alderman, don't be fooled by blackface. Now, we know how that works in our community, y'all. We have people that have been around our communities forever that have black faces, but the issues and who they fight for, work for. And I call the names. We look at Brandon Johnson and Stacey Davis Gates and what's her name? Elise, United Working Families. You have black faces. And what that does to the black community is we visually, so we believe they are working in our best interest, but they are completely working against us. It's diabolical. It's actually opposite. And they play on us being uneducated and disengaged and not saying anything. And so this is part of this effort to educate people and then have some action items to get people moving in the game. So we got the sanctions. We also know that we have a big budget price crisis coming up. We know that the money from the federal government is dried up. So next year is going to be a horrible year in Chicago and Illinois, the state of Illinois, because they don't have that revenue sitting there. So what's been happening is now Alderman Lopez and Alderman Beal has tried to put this ballot referendum to the public, right? So Alderman, I'll let you explain it because I know you have better detail, but explain the first move when it got pulled into the Rules Committee, correct? And how that process played out. And I'll say it is my Alderman, Michelle Harris, who I've known for 30 years. And Michelle worked. So when you're in the head of the Rules Committee, you are Alderman and represents a body, the 8th Ward. But when you are in a position like the head of Rules, you're doing the bidding of the mayor and administration when you take actions as the Rules Committee chair.
So what we saw was that, first off, every city council has the opportunity to put ballot measures on the ballot as a referendum. We don't have to do petitions. We are all elected. We could put up to 3 on the ballot. And the mayor already had one that he wanted to put, which was the real estate transfer tax to increase the cost of selling a home in the city of Chicago.
Right.
And then they also wanted to talk about a few others. That is the purview of the Rules Committee.
Yeah.
The referendum, which Alderman Beal had, with regards to putting Sanctuary City on the ballot, also belongs in Rules Committee, but they called 2 committees to try and just slow down the process on that particular referendum, which is why we saw that kerfuffle last week during Rules Committee where we're like, how do you refer something back to yourself if you already have possession of it? Right. Rightly or wrongly, it was a tactic. It's a stall tactic by the mayor's team, which is why we called for a special city council meeting Thursday to bypass committee altogether and say, we're going to put the referendum question about sanctuary city status directly on the agenda so we could vote for it.
Right.
That is where really all hell broke loose.
We were there, you all. First-hand experience to it. All hell broke loose in the city council on Thursday. And so I want to talk about I want to talk about a little bit, voice what happened, and then Alderman, you can give your view of it and what happened. And then we have a video clip that we want to play about a certain individual. So first, I just want to talk about what they did is they stalled the vote. So the key to what the administration, so you had, who was the mayor pro tem, which is
Samantha Nugent.
Samantha Nugent. So you have an alderman, Samantha Nugent. Brandon Johnson went to DC, right? By the way, the news says he went to DC to ask for $5 billion for the migrants. Not for you, but for the migrants. $5 billion. Keep that in mind.
And other things.
And other things, right? And other things, but not for us, right? So be clear. So what happened at the beginning of the meeting, there was a quorum call. A quorum call is the amount of people. There are 50 aldermen. You need 26 to be able to pass a law. So that's called quorum, right?
Well, 26 to open up the meeting.
Open up the meeting. Okay, to open up the meeting. And so at the beginning of the first time quorum was called, there were 25 members, correct?
Right.
There were 25 members. Although there was one council member that was hiding behind the walls that we're going to get to, that we're going to end this segment with that. This could be really good there. So we had 25 and no phone calls yet, right? Because the Zoom calls were not brought in
Correct.
into the side. So they called a 30-minute recess, correct?
Correct.
And now that gave, a little bit of maneuvering around, made some phone calls. We called our alderman to get on. And what we saw next is now we had people on Zoom by the time the next roll call came around.
Mm-hmm.
That's correct.
Yep.
Right. And that time, that's the one where all the chaos started.
Yep.
Right. That was the call right there. And I'm going to talk about it. And we're going to tell you all what I saw. And then we're going to play a clip. I'm going to let the alderman respond to what I said. And I want to play a clip because I'm going to zero in on this particular individual and show a clip and talk through what happened in that clip. So what we saw is,
But before you say, I want to say that this meeting was called for 10:30.
Right.
And the mayor's allies intentionally had another committee meeting run nearly 2 hours late, talking about everything under the sun they could possibly talk about,
Right.
filled with the Leftinos, as I like to call them, and a lot of the progressive aldermen from the lakefront, and all these people who should have been able to just stay in their seats
Right.
for the special meeting,
Yep.
who evaporated like hot water the
Absolutely.
moment that meeting ended because they all disappeared and went hiding in the hallways.
Absolutely.
So we had folks literally waiting nearly 2 hours
Yep.
for a meeting that was scheduled at 10:30, didn't get rolling until 12:30.
Yep.
The newspapers, the news said it was chaos,
Yep.
but it was organized chaos.
Absolutely.
Let me say this. It was
Absolutely.
organized and intentional because we had members there
Yep.
and everyone played dumb and stupid.
Right.
How do you make a quorum call? How do you call roll? How do you do, acting like they've
Absolutely.
never been in the room before?
Right. With the corporation council.
With
there.
two corporations.
Right. Sitting there advising this, right?
How do you game the system to prevent democracy from happening?
Right.
Should have been the title.
Right.
And actually
right.
could be a
Yes.
Right.
class.
All right.
Yes.
All right. How not to do democracy.
Right.
So let me say this. So we're back up a little bit. So at the beginning of the day, there's a floor leader. So the floor leader serves the will and kind of talk to
Of the
council
mayor.
members of the mayor, right? And this guy, the alderman, is 35th ward alderman,
Yep.
Carlos Rosa, Ramirez Rosa, right? And that's his name. And he sent out in the morning, a text to all the council members, don't show up if you don't, basically it said, I'm paraphrasing.
Nobody's showing up.
Right. Don't worry
Go
about
find
it.
something to
Do something else. Don't
Make
even
the best
come.
use of your day.
Now, he didn't know who was showing up unless he told people not to show up, right? Keep in mind, he doesn't know that because it's 8 o'clock in the morning, 8:30 in the morning,
We had
right?
More than enough show up.
Absolutely. But because they came to the first meeting. So now they showed up anyway, but keep in mind, he started that foolishness early in the morning on his own. So now, how about this?
Assumingly.
Assumingly on his own, right?
But
But
he is the mayor's floor leader.
right. So he's the mayor's floor leader. So be clear, he is getting directions from the mayor or mayor's administration and their political allies. Because, we could go deeper in that at some point. But I don't believe that Brandon Johnson is calling shots in the city of Chicago. There are other forces that are telling Brandon what to do. And they don't want this sanctuary city question to come up in Chicago because they know Chicago citizens are going to say no. And it stops their money flow, right? Because if we get rid of them, a whole bunch of people lose a whole bunch of money. And it's still not us. It's not Chicagoans. It's not Black Chicago. It's not anybody that we know.
Not even Latino
Right.
Chicago.
It's not Latino Chicago, right? That's making the money. It's the same people who make money off the last three administrations, right? And they have been getting money out of Chicago. I call them the social service industrial complex. They are advisors and people.
I just call them poverty pimps.
Right, poverty pimps, you know, and that includes some people that look like us, a bunch of pastors and not-for-profits. You got groups who get money to put out in the Black community, but you don't ever see it, right? They'll come and have a press conference, and then they have galas, and they're all happy. You see them on social media, and they on boats, and they at parties. And where we at? We at the same place, wondering when we go get a piece of this puzzle pie. So I want to, should we talk about? I wonder if we should talk about it first or show this clip and zero on a specific individual. Want to play the clip?
I'm actually anxious.
Right. You see the clip. So if we could go ahead and roll this clip. So you guys, this is an individual, and we're going to talk through.
Morning at 9:45.
There's Alderman Mitch. We have 26, Madam President.
Zero in. What you see right there, that's Emma Mitz, right? I don't know what's happened to the video, but that's Alderman Mitz at the beginning of that video. And it seemed to be hung up here. Maybe if we press play, I'm not sure what's hanging the video up. But what you see in this video at the beginning is you see Alderman Mitz come in the door, right?
Madam Clerk, can you please take a roll on the matter to recess till Tuesday morning at 9:45?
There she goes right there.
There's Alderman Mitch. We have 26, Madam President. Coleman? Was Coleman on the roll?
Yeah, she's right here.
We have Coleman and Mitz here. We have 27.
Madam Clerk, I believe we just need to take the roll to ensure we have quorum.
Excuse me. So we are taking quorum roll call.
Now, after
One more time.
Alderman Mitz is there, so I'm going to go through this quick and we're going to talk about it. Now he's over there in the Jason Irvin, 22nd Ward Alderman.
Okay.
Telling,
Give us 1 second to upload it.
He's probably saying something like, Jason, we need you to go ahead and pull something.
The chair recognizes Alderman Sposato.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I have to go there. I just have one question. I legitimately don't know the answer to this, and I need a lot to answer this. We already took a roll
Jason,
call.
get back in there and sit down, man. Don't let him take you out, right? And then this Alderman here tries to make something, but it's really loud at this point, which is why he didn't get anything done there. What you're going to see is Alderman Irvin come back in with Rosas, right? And it's a real raucous crowd in this thing here. I want to focus on this clip. There's Jason Irvin coming back in after being pulled out by the floor leader, right, Carlos Rosas. And then you're going to see Rosas come back in again. So he'll be back in a
I think
second.
people are having a hard time hearing us with the audio from the clip.
Gotcha. So I'll be quiet for a minute. But why we can't hear it? No. I didn't know they can hear it. That's fine. So we'll just let this play for a second.
So there's audio on the other end.
Yes, the audio on the video, which I didn't know where. Now he's with Alderman Yancey.
Folks in the back, just have a little grace with me. I'm a little new today. I apologize, Alderman Beal. Madam Clerk, please take the roll for quorum. I apologize.
Keep in mind,
Alderman Laspada. Alderman Laspada not present in chambers. Alderman Hopkins.
Present.
Alderman Hopkins is present. Alderwoman Dowell, not present in chambers. Alderperson Robinson, not present in chambers. Alderman Yancey. Alderman Yancey is present. Alderman Hall, not present in chambers. Alderman Mitchell. Alderman Mitchell is present. Alderwoman Harris, not present in chambers. Alderman Beal.
Yep.
Alderman Beal is present. Alderman Chico.
Present.
Alderman Chico is present. Alderwoman Lee. Present. Alderwoman Lee is present. Alderwoman Ramirez, not present in chambers. Alderman Quinn. Here. Alderman Quinn is present. Alderwoman Gutierrez, not present in chambers. Alderman Lopez.
Present.
Alderman Lopez is present. Alderwoman Coleman. Coleman is present. Alderwoman Coleman is present. Alderman Moore.
Audio off the video itself.
Alderman Moore is
Put the audio
present.
down.
Alderman Curtis. Alderman Curtis is present. Alderman O'Shea.
Here.
Alderman O'Shea is present. Alderman Taylor.
I got you.
Not present in chambers. Alderman Mosley. Present. Alderman Mosley is not present. Is present, I'm sorry. Alderman Mosley is present. Alderman Rodriguez, not present. Alderman Tabarez. Here. Alderman Tabarez is present. Alderwoman Scott. Present. Alderwoman Scott is present.
They'll get back to answering questions and talking again.
Yeah. So, all right. So we're back here. So that clip, we maybe couldn't hear. What we're trying to do is explain that was Alderman Rosas, the mayor's floor leader. After, and I want to let Alderman Lopez talk about what happened when he left out of that room. He made a call and said to the chair, "We want to go in the back and call people out of the back. So give us chance." You should have used the sergeant at arms didn't do it.
So let me give some context. So where that video started, Alderman Mitz and I are walking back in the room. Before that, there was a what they call a quorum call to determine how many members present.
Right.
Basically attendance for all of us.
Right.
We got to 25, but from where I sit in the council, there's a door which is right in front of me, which leads to the back. And I could see Ramirez Rosa and Emma Mitz in the doorway. So I yell, will someone instruct the sergeant at arms to go get the members in the back so that they can be counted? Any other meeting, sergeant at arms, who are basically like the security guys for the council, would walk back, yell roll call, and everyone would come running in.
Right.
This meeting, sergeant at arms didn't move.
And
Nobody moved.
And the sergeant at arms reports to the head of the rules committee. Am I accurate in saying that?
He's employed by the rules committee.
And that's Alderman Michelle Harris, everybody. A4.
So just before they were to announce that we didn't have quorum, Alderman Beal stood up to make a motion, a prolonged motion, to give me time to go run in the back. And that's when I ran in the back to find out and saw Emma.
Right.
Emma, come on, we need you. What's taking so long?
Right.
And that's where I saw Carlos Ramirez Rosa holding on to Emma, this close on her, matching her body for body, so she could not get past him to get in the room.
Right.
Right. I physically had to push into him to get him to stop as she was trying to maneuver around him just so she could walk in.
Yeah.
That's why she looked so disheveled. That's why she looked so flustered.
Right.
Because she literally had to fight off another alderman, a foot higher and 100 pounds heavier, that was trying to prevent her from getting in the room.
Yep.
This is the same man who was responsible for bringing people together, pushing the mayor's agenda.
Right.
And I guess that was his agenda, to push Emma Mitz out the way.
Right, push her out the way.
And not just Emma Mitz, ladies and gentlemen, because he disenfranchised 4 black aldermen that day. Not only did he try to stop Emma, he basically he hung up on Dowell, Burnett, and Harris later to say that they weren't in the room anymore.
Right.
Because they magically disappeared from virtual participation.
We were there. Literally, the screen, they were on the screen like a Zoom call situation. You see their names, and then somebody hit something and they get hung up on the other 3 black aldermen. So in that clip, you see Alderman Mitz, followed by Alderman Lopez, come into the room. She stops and talks to Alderman Lee. She continued, then somebody with us says, "Auntie, we need you to sit down and stay in your seat," because we're the gallery. We're saying, "Hey, stay in this room this time." She says, "He was holding me. He was blocking me. He wouldn't let me in. He was grabbing me." So we heard her tell us in the gallery that Alderman Rosas held her, would not let her, obstructed her coming into the gallery before he started making his rounds later on in that clip to other aldermen to continue threats. And that's what kind of bubbled up at that point. Keep on going on and kind of put, what happened next off that. Now we did get to form together.
So Carlos, who never said he was in the room, asked for multiple roll calls.
Yeah.
The presiding officer kept stalling and dragging feet and trying to say that we were out of order, even for the most basic of motions.
Right.
All a coordinated attempt to undo what we were there to do, to stop us from allowing voters from having the opportunity to decide for themselves if we should remain a sanctuary city. And yet he kept bouncing in, bouncing out. I think one of your friends called him a cage gorilla jumping through.
It was a lot of stuff said that day. It was a raucous crowd.
I will say this. That man was unhinged. And that was just the very beginning of his antics, which were first he lied to the city council members saying that we weren't going to meet. Then he tried to stop Emma. Then he started threatening other people because he's also the chairman of zoning. So anyone trying to build anything, that's where all your developers and aldermen go to. If you want to turn your 1 flat to a 2 flat, you want to do something with your front office space, you have to go to zoning. He threatened 3 aldermen, saying, if you don't do what I tell you,
Yep.
either leave this room or don't support this, nothing is going to happen in your wards as long as I'm chairman.
Absolutely.
Folks, that is illegal. We've seen zoning chairmen threaten people. Now you're trying to extort them for votes.
Exactly.
Right.
We already got one zoning chairman in court. Maybe we're going to have back-to-back zoning chairmans because there's still room on the bench for Carlos.
So, Alderman, that's a good point, because a lot of people in our group, I see Natasha Dunn's in here. So people in our group are asking, we were talking, and we're sitting back saying, well, what is kind of recourse? What can the citizens do? We see that democracy being stifled. I saw something, and one of your colleagues was talking about censure. So censure is when you guys come together and say, this is inappropriate behavior, but there's no really teeth to that, right? It's just a censure.
So the Black Caucus put out a statement earlier saying, we want an apology. We want him gone as floor leader. I think they even said, he shouldn't be head of zoning.
Zoning, yes.
Yep. The Latino Caucus came out with one I think that's even a little stronger, which basically says, and I quote, we call on Mayor Johnson to immediately request the resignation of Carlos Ramirez Rosa as floor leader and chairman of the zoning committee. If he's unwilling to resign, he should be expelled from the body, kicked out as alderman.
Wow.
Because I believe, as do my brothers and sisters, that he has lost his authority, his moral authority to be not only anything in leadership,
right,
but to be an alderman.
Right.
Yes,
Right.
for sure.
We are beyond,
Right.
way beyond anything at this point
Yeah.
that remotely allows him to think that he has the moral license to remain. He's abdicated his oath. He's shown his true colors, and he is a danger to women of color in that body.
Insane.
Because he has threatened and attacked on numerous occasions women of color.
Yep. Unacceptable.
Numerous occasions.
It is unacceptable.
Yeah.
And if I'm not mistaken, we are up to 25 members who want action against him right now.
So that's something.
And if Mayor Johnson doesn't answer, because he hasn't said squat for 3 days,
Yep.
that is very telling to where his loyalties lie to his own community.
And so people, when we talk about what's happening in Chicago, and we see it's race related, right? We know race is a big thing. We have a black mayor who is allowing his floor leader, right? And it's not calling on a massive race scenario, but I want to keep centering what we're watching here in Chicago. Carlos Rosa is a Democratic Socialist of America. He's one of the left, right? So this is what they're doing. So it's not even about, race. It's about this particular group of individuals and the way they operate. It's not about Hispanic, because clearly we have Hispanic allies. You have the Hispanic caucus coming out against one of them. Some of them, right? Of course, some members, not the caucus as a whole,
And keep in mind too, Brian, look what happened after the Black Caucus wanted action against Carlos.
Man.
His other communist comrade,
Right, exactly.
Rosanna Rodriguez Sanchez, another chairman,
Yep.
fellow neighbor, 33rd Ward, turns around and tells the Black Caucus, threatens the Black Caucus.
Threaten the Black Caucus.
If you come out swinging against our comrade Carlos, then she was gonna file a sexual harassment claim against somebody in retaliation.
Some black alderman. So she come out. So his allies, this is how they play you all.
Yep.
She tried to pull it and say, if you keep pushing this on Carlos Rosa, we're going to bring some scandal towards you. That is not democracy in America. And so this is why we keep talking about Marxist communists here in this caucus and in Chicago. They're not playing a democratic game. They're playing a gangster game on their own terms, and it's dangerous. So we call on Mayor Johnson. It's really on him. He could pull that card tomorrow if he cared enough about democracy, if he cared about what's going on. We'll tell people to come out.
So what
And just keep in mind what Rosanna did is a violation of the state law, which says you cannot threaten to withhold or to act in order to get someone else to do something in those natures. You can't threaten to expose someone in an effort to try and extort something out of them, because that's a class 3 felony.
Oh, wow.
So we have felonious actions by aldermen live and in person right now.
Crazy.
So what people need to do to answer that question, first and foremost, you need to call your alderman and tell them to stand strong with Emma Mitz.
Gotcha.
First and foremost, she's the victim here. She was attacked, and she needs to know that people stand with her, because that's like our grandma, y'all.
Right.
I mean, that's
Right.
who she is.
And
we
she's
need
the
to-
senior member,
Man,
right?
Call
she's
your
the senior-
alderman.
Call your
Call
alderman.
your alderman, tell them to
Call your
stand
alderman.
with her, and then show up and make sure that Carlos is held accountable for this action, and that the mayor has no wiggle room to try to squeeze through a deal or hope that this all goes under the rug.
Yeah.
Back to business. City Council Finance Committee meets tomorrow. Budget meets tomorrow. They all want to get the mayor's budget rolling.
Right.
Nothing should be happening until
Correct.
the mayor has an answer for Carlos Ramirez Rosa.
Right. So there's a move
Shut
tomorrow.
it down tomorrow.
People will be, so tomorrow we got a call to action on Tuesday's meeting to go in and support. That's 9:30 at City Council, right? On Tuesday. Show up, you all, tell your friends, bring your neighbors down, bring your grandmamas down, because we're trying to push the sanctuary city ordinance and stand in support. But again, if you can
show
come
up
down
tomorrow,
tomorrow, there we go. There's another call to action, you all. We need to go down there tomorrow and just be there. Whoever can make it down there, I'm going to be down there. I'll come down in the morning.
121 North LaSalle. Show up, be at City Council. I'd say 9:30.
9:30 tomorrow, 121
Council Chambers, 121 North LaSalle.
North LaSalle, you all, City Hall. And that presence, so there, I see some people on here, I believe. Our presence down there helped keep this thing moving, right? It was a pretty ghetto scenario, y'all. It was pretty funny on top of it. But our actions in the gallery and the energy brought there made them tiptoe around, or not Carlos, but it helped energize the aldermen and give people to say, hey, Chicago is with us. So we need to be down there. We got a bus leaving out of South Shore from South Shore High School. If you want to go, drop something in the comments section. It's leaving for South Shore High School, probably 8 o'clock in the morning. If you're interested, if you're in South Shore and need to ride down. If not, come down Tuesday. We're going to have a big crowd down there also for that council meeting. But again, some of us will be down there tomorrow. If you're free to come on down, that's next action. I want to end and say, so again, we watched Carlos take the gavel. So the end of the thing, you all, Carlos Rosa grabbed the gavel and turned the lights out on everybody. Now imagine how disrespectful that is. And then him, the corporation council, and the president pro tem walked out on 24 aldermen at the time. 25 aldermen and the gallery of citizens turned the lights out and just left. Now that was a pretty gangster move, but they have to pay for that.
But they think they were slick by walking out and thinking that they could just do that. But this matter was settled in 1983, Rhodey versus Harold Washington, which says that the aldermen, when there's no quorum, the meeting doesn't stop just because the quorum's broken. You have a choice to make and a vote to make, and they left it open-ended, which is why you see a picture of me at the podium banging my hand saying we are in recess, because the law says that we have two decisions to make, recess and adjourn. And we made our decision to recess so that they could not kill what we're doing. They have a department full of lawyers. Beautiful. But we know what we're doing, and they are not going to stop democracy. They're not going to stop you. So
this is beautiful.
Let's do it.
And I am glad, and thank you, Alderman Lopez, and your fellow colleagues who are standing up for Americans, standing up for all Chicago. It's what we need. And you all, we are on the cusp of something. We haven't seen, in my opinion, unity in pushing on these efforts, and it's a broad coalition. You have some of those socialists have broken ranks and made statements. You have Hispanics, whites, blacks, all coming together for democracy, and it's against the Brandon Johnson administration, you all. So people who voted for him, it's y'all fault. You should have voted for him in the first place. But now we got to go back and fix it and hold them accountable to moving Chicago forward in an equitable way. So, Alderman, we appreciate your time here. We will bring you out again soon, right? We're going to have this show going. And Alderman, there was something else you could talk about real quick before we go. You are also seeking another office against one of our famed socialist communist members.
Yes, I'm running for Congress because my colleagues were kind enough to throw that at me like 5 times.
Like it was bad, like it was a bad thing. So,
but I'm still alderman now.
Yes,
and we're still going to protect Chicago now.
Absolutely. So he's, of course, acting in the alderman here to tell us what's going on here. But he is running for Congress against Chuy Garcia. So keep that in mind, because that's gonna play out as we go forward into the next election cycle, right? Because it's gonna be a big thing here, coming up. So we also have you're welcome to stay around here. We're bringing on a couple people to talk about our event tomorrow. One is Arthur Roy Beck from the back of the Iron Line, right? From Numbers USA. So you can sit here and join in. And if we want to bring Denise or Roy on, we can bring them in now and let's talk about what's going on. Let them talk about some of the things that's happening. Sometime soon. We need to bring them in. Maybe I can help that out if I can figure this out here.
Alderman Lopez is definitely an ally. You guys
Absolutely.
they voted for you. Thank you.
And okay, no problem at all. All right, Alderman. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Peace.
Hello, Denise and Roy. How are you guys doing? Can you guys hear us? Uh-oh. I don't hear the audio here. Well, I see you guys here on the screen. Can you guys hear me?
Now?
Can you guys hear me in
There's a mute
here?
button at the very bottom of the screen there. That yeah.
So I'm not able to hear you guys. I don't know if the public can hear. Can anybody? Can you guys hear them also?
Can you guys hear? I can hear Roy and I can hear Brian.
I'm not hearing them now.
No, I'm hearing everybody. Thanks, Denise, for pointing me to
this. Hold on one second, you all. I'm having some.
So I'm unmuted.
Getting them in here, listening, hearing them.
All right, can you hear us?
So we
Brian?
have a producer here. So this is our first show here, you all. We have some little technical difficulties because I can't hear anybody or anything.
Oh.
And again, I don't know if you guys can hear.
Yeah, is your window, the tab that you have us in, is it muted?
On here. Let me see. Give me 1 second, guys. Let's try to work this out on what we need to do to fix this here. One little glitch.
Everybody's saying they can hear us, but
text
Brian
messages.
can't.
So let me see what people are saying.
Yeah.
Because on my side, I can't hear anything.
So I'm just gonna keep talking.
Well, people can hear me, but I can't hear you guys, right? So I don't know how we had this conversation. Can people hear you guys speak? And if so, you all can talk and I'll watch. No, but I don't know because I can't hear on my side. So let me check.
Okay, we'll keep talking.
Yeah, so if you guys want to go ahead and talk to the public about what's going on, give some insight to introduce you guys and what's going on while I fix my own technical difficulties. Maybe it's just on my side. So give me 1 second, guys.
Well, so I'm just happy that I'm not the only person who has this kind of difficulties. So while he's getting that figured out, but for those that are watching, we're I know that for those of us at Numbers USA, which is a national organization headquartered in Arlington and Washington, D.C., we're extremely interested in what's happening in the Chicago community. And I really impressed by the, I think, sort of heroism, because across the country, Denise, we see people trying to rise up in their communities to stand up for themselves against the costs, the burdens of illegal immigration, which are the costs and burdens are almost always put on people who are least able to bear them. And I think that the activism and leadership that we're seeing out of Chicago is potentially, I hope, is going to really inspire people in other communities.
No, I agree. And it is remarkable to me listening to Alderman Lopez share the extortion, the conspiracy to disenfranchise Black voters and their duly elected officials from casting votes in the interest of the Black community. And it's not lost on me, Roy, that the elderly alderwoman who was assaulted by that man is probably a multi-generational Black American whose ancestors endured generations of disenfranchisement.
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
It's because I'm using the Apple computer, guys. I must have hit some button wrong when I was playing around.
No worries.
Thank you, guys.
So it's not lost on me that, I don't know her lineage, and it does matter in that that assault, the audacity of it, is a continuation of the unbroken chain of harms that multi-generational Black American Negro freedmen, like me and my family, 7th gen here, have endured. And for him to be so comfortable as to hem her up in a hallway prior to a council meeting because of his political interest, as I understand it, for his people, it's wild. And I'm glad Chicago's turning up, is all I can say.
Absolutely. It's going to be great. So I think I came up with my little technical difficulties. We also, so I mentioned you all like this, when our mayor, Brandon Johnson, went to DC, he took Jason Lee with him, who's his senior advisor. So you all know Jason Lee. He is a senior advisor to Mayor Brandon Johnson. He is also the son of Sheila Jackson Lee. And he was with Mayor Johnson in DC asking for $5 billion for migrants, none for foundational Black Americans at this point. And they are of Jamaican descent, I believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
So all these things are tied together, you all. We have non-foundational Black Americans in positions, and they're not advocating for us at all. They're advocating for other groups. So,
You know, I'm on. Go ahead, Roy. I already said it. Go ahead.
Well, the theme of the book that I wrote that really kind of worked on for about 20 years, picking up here and there history. I kept waiting for somebody else to do this book, but to pull together all this history. This has happened over and over again.
Yep.
And yet, one thing we're going to talk about tomorrow night is to remind ourselves of our history and the fact that 100 years ago, the Black community was very much in the same situation as today. They'd been overwhelmed for about 40 years with incredible influx of foreign laborers that held back the freedmen from where they could have gone in terms of income and development of their wealth. And major Black leaders, the top Black leaders that people study about in their Black history of that period, were all part of the movement that you're part of, Brian. I mean, those national Black leaders were fighting to cut off high levels of immigration. And they made it very clear it didn't matter what race the immigrants were, that these foreign workers were, because what they were fighting for was for the freedmen and the descendants of the American slavery system. Yep. They were fighting for them. And regardless of where any of these immigrants came from, they were coming in such masses that they were undermining the ability of the freedmen to build wealth. And what the wonderful thing that happened the next year, 99 years ago, was Congress changed the law. They cut immigration by about 2/3, and you had the Great Migration, which basically, kind of filled Chicago up with Black Southerners. And I guess that is. Well, I don't guess. I know this is what we at Numbers USA are looking for. This is what allies around the country are looking for. Is that we'll finally have a breakthrough, and it'll be just the kind of amalgamation that you're talking about, Brian, about all these different kinds of Chicagoans that are coming together. Kind of an unusual mix, really.
Yeah.
But what they have in common is they're Americans who are kind of fighting to be placed first, ahead of everybody in the world. I have to give this one statistic because I just looked it up.
Mm-hmm.
The Gallup polling organization has done, they poll all around the world. Their most recent polling shows that there are 46 million people in Latin America who say that they want to move to the United States. 46 million. I mean, we've been overwhelmed. Chicago's overwhelmed because a couple, 3 million have been let across the border, but there's 46 million that are waiting to come on. So if if this doesn't stop now, you got to stop it now. You can't keep it going.
Right.
Right. And to add to that, for you all correct me if I get my figures wrong, but we're about 44 million foundational Black Americans here in the United States as a unit. And we push, and we're going to continue to push to work as a unit, right? Because if we don't, we are being resettled in our cities, and we will be pushed to fourth. I think by 2060, the estimates is probably escalated with its immigration, right? Which is what's happening now. We will be fourth if we've treated like this and are at the bottom cast in America from the beginning as the second largest population. We could all imagine what our children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren will have to go through as the fourth population. So we're trying to educate people. This is a serious thing, It's not necessarily race. It is the political climate of our country. And it's just, and to what Mr. Beck says, it's ebbs and flows. So it's not new. We watched it before, but this time we're in a position to do something about it.
Yeah, and it's new players, right? And it'll always be new players. And I think what multi-generational Black Americans, foundational Black Americans, ADOS, all the things, right? The people who are the descendants of the founding Black population of the United States of America, what we're going to have to realize is that we are always going to have to defend and secure our place and position in the United States of America. It'll be different players with different interests, but we're always going to have to defend it. So tomorrow, one of the things that I want to do is talk a little bit about how my trajectory in becoming aware of and activated on immigration moderation. I wrote that piece for Newsweek back in 2021 when the Haitian border crisis happened about should Black Americans champion immigration, and the floodgates just opened in terms of people sending me hate, plus people sending me appreciation. But what I have seen happen since then is that there are many myths in the Black American community that have to be busted and uprooted before we get to a place where we're willing to demand delivery on the promises made to us before we set ourselves on fire and open up the United States to 8 billion other people in the world. Because as Roy said, it's 46 million who said they'd come tomorrow if they could find a way. But there are many others who would come once they realize how non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and non-for-profits are handing out money to help people get here and make their way through Central and South America and Mexico in order to get here. So the floodgates are opening, and they're only going to open more unless we get this immigration thing under control. And the moral authority, the outrage of Black Americans is essential to making that happen.
Wow. And that's what we need to do. And that's where it starts in local cities like this fight we're having here in Chicago.
Yeah.
And and our goal is to spiral this organization and conversation up the chain to Congress, because ultimately immigration is a federal issue. So this is why I appreciate you guys are coming in, and we can have these type of conversations anytime here, right? Because our goal is to definitely educate on the ground foundational Black Americans on what's going on, but not just Black Americans, as you guys have experienced, I'm sure. White American, no Americans really understand this foundational Black American conversation. I can't believe that I just personally found out about the movement with Yvette Carnell and ADOS, and that was probably 2016. But I'm 54 years old, right? And so now we're sitting back, now we got to educate our people about ethnicity and about lineage and who deserves what to go ahead. And I think that's an energizing, galvanizing point that's going to go around the country. And that's why I'm glad that we're partnering with Numbers USA to go ahead and build coalitions nationwide, because this is a nationwide movement that we're trying to create in cities. And we just happen to be in a space where you have illegal immigration taking place in all these democratic cities across the country inside a Black community. So it's a great rallying point that we need to latch on to. I met Denise in person at the Center for Immigration Studies. We talked on the phone once, and we learned, I said with Alderman Lopez, I learned more about immigration than I ever thought I would in my life, and the nuances of the regulations and how the Biden administration is making it easy. And they're playing it like it's, for efficiency, but they're making it easier. And it does have ramifications to electoral politics, resources being put around. And I didn't talk about it with Alderman Lopez, but we're worried about the electoral stuff that's going to happen in Chicago, because now they are letting the immigrants have driver's licenses. Cars. They've added, a colleague and I, they've been researching, they have added tents as the housing unit in Chicago. Now, is that a coincidence? That now tents are now able to be used for address purposes? Absolutely not, because their goal is to be voters. Yeah, Chicago has to be ground zero for this. We have a socialist, Marxist, communist regime in the head of Chicago, with teachers union. So Chicago Teachers Union, for those who don't know, they have spaces in American Federation of Teachers. They're like the president, the vice president. So they have a lot of weight in this national movement. And so we believe here that this is all connected to all these conversations. And you all say something. We had our teachers union go to Venezuela. Like, picture this. They went to Venezuela in 2019 to recruit teachers. And all of a sudden, they also solidified in the teachers contract. Every school in Chicago, public schools, every school in the system has to spend up to $2 million to defend the immigration rights and status of the teachers that they brought from Venezuela. They got it written into the contract.
Wow.
Now they're the mayor. So now there's another teacher's contract that's to be in negotiation. I have no idea how lopsided it's going to be for people who are not American citizens. So, yep.
And you make a really good point about the fact that this is, although this is probably most important for Friedman, everything that is done on immigration that is helpful to Friedman around the country is also helpful to Americans of other groups. It's just that Friedman are hurt the most by all of this. So it's a lot of people say, well, you can't take this on because you're dividing blacks against Hispanics. Well, you're not against Hispanic Americans. Hispanic Americans are being hurt by this as well. Now, they've got leaders who seek more power. They want it. But in terms of where the Hispanic citizens are, they're coming around too, as you're seeing in Chicago. Yeah, one of the things that I start my book off with, and I think that this needs to be at the forefront of almost all discussions. That is the Census Bureau continues to find that the median household wealth, net wealth, median net household wealth for Black Americans is less than 10% that of all other Americans. Now, income and wage equity is much closer. But when it comes to wealth, net wealth, household wealth, less than 10%. Now, I don't know what point the threshold is, but as I conclude in my book, I can just find no moral reason for anybody to make apologies for saying the immigration policy in Chicago and the immigration policy in the country as a whole must be, look, first of all, how is it going to affect the average Black household? Because if it's having a negative effect on Black households, which are 10% of the rest of the country, even Hispanics, overwhelmingly, their families have arrived since 1965. Even Hispanics have twice the net household as Black households. So, I think that what I see in your movement here in Chicago is that people are feeling this moral courage, moral confidence to speak, to fight for their community without apology. And hopefully, and I believe that your movement, if it can inspire other movements in other cities, I think that your people will find, and your movement there will find, you have far more influence than anybody can imagine.
Yep.
Because there's a big misconception among the national media that cover this subject that Black Americans are in favor of this open border stuff because
Right,
Black Americans have a heart for everybody else in the world that has a problem. Well, they may have a heart for it, but it doesn't, you cannot have another 46 million people coming in from Latin America or another. By the way, Gallup found there's 160 million million people around the whole world that say they intend to come to the United States. So you've got to stand up, and you've got to take a stand. This is the time now. I'm so excited to be there tomorrow night. Be a part of it.
I appreciate that. Let me just say something real quick today. So this whole thing's kicked off in Chicago. We have a colleague, I believe she's online, or she was, Natasha Dunn. She filed a lawsuit to stop migrants from moving into South Shore High School. So that happened to be the kickoff moment for what happened in Chicago. And we're riding this energy and wave. And since then, it's been 3 more lawsuits filed because you can't stop it, right? You can't stop this administration. And again, I just want to say we are dealing with a different type of administration. They are Marxist communists, and they are vowed. They tell you they are, right? To your point, Roy, Black Americans, we're sympathetic, right? We always care about people. And I'm not saying to be uncaring, but we have to have self-preservation first, right? And I'm not ashamed. They call us names. They put us on the news. Don't you feel bad that this has happened? I'm like, yeah, but also feel bad about the Black people sleeping in the tent, right? I mean, and nobody cared about it for the last 30 years. They're calling us right-wingers. As you know, this is a political conversation. So since they happen to be the extreme left, we're taking all the heat being called names to make us feel bad about situations. So we got to deal with all these things at the same time. So,
well, I will say that I'm shameless when it comes to defending the interest of American Negro freedmen. So you can call me a right winger or a Republican if you want, because the reality is I am a Black Republican in the vein of Frederick Douglass, who himself realized the cost of mass immigration on himself and his own family and his countrymen, and was like, hold up, wait a minute. So we need to switch this up and we need to change this because it's affecting America and it's affecting the prospects, the future, the economic future, the political future of the people who built this nation for 247 years in chains. And you can't shame me out of putting my people first. I'm so sorry. And if there are needs that need to be addressed with other people related to economics, infrastructure building, and the like, the best place to do that is in their home country, not to bring them to this country for various reasons, some of which we can talk about tomorrow, including what you mentioned today. The former slaves of this nation used to be the second largest numerical population in the United States. And the government had to listen to us for various reasons and did listen to us. And now what you see is on the left and on the right, they act like Hispanics are the larger voting population over Black Americans, when the reality is that illegal aliens are counted in the Hispanic population, as are their children. When you look at legitimate vetted voters, Black Americans are the swing vote. The Democrats can't win elections without us. When we stay home, Republicans win. And what we need to do is force everybody to listen to the Black American voice. And that's what this rally is about tomorrow. A bit of civic education, a bit of calls to action, including sending notices and position statements to your elected officials on the spot tonight. We'll walk you through that process. There are some that are already set up. And talking about the local and state actions, Brian, that you and the many, many dedicated folk in Chicago, grassroots people in Chicago, are doing in order to hold elected officials accountable. And again, have our voices heard. Because what you're going to do is you're going to either get out the paint or you're going to get out of our way. But we can't have people assaulting our elders. And we most certainly cannot have the descendants of U.S. slaves, the descendants of free Negroes who've already survived incredible genocide in this nation, continue to be disenfranchised by people who they don't care what happens to us because they are interested in their own political ambitions.
That sounds great. Roy, would you like to make another statement before we close out here? And I can't wait till tomorrow. I am excited. Yeah. It's going to be a great evening.
Well, I'm not going to say anything after Denise because it'll be a letdown. That was all I can say is amen, amen, and let's keep that fire burning tomorrow night.
Hey, Roy, it's funny you said that. When I first talked to Denise, I said, Denise, you say what I think I'm saying, but it sounds so much better coming from you. Right? I don't have that. Right. I say it a little bit outside of eloquently. So, all right, guys. Thanks.
Takes all voices.
This was great. I'll see you tomorrow. We'll probably hook up earlier in the day or whatever. But I look forward to tomorrow. It's going to be an exciting evening. Everybody who's listening, show up tomorrow. The center of Inglewood, 828 West.
838 West Marquette Road.
West Marquette. There we go. At 6 o'clock. Come early. We'll be there. Open the doors at 5:30. Come on through. Listen to these people here give this great conversation. You'll learn a lot. You'll walk away feeling empowered with action items on what we can do. Save our country, save Black America, and save Chicago. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for being guests. And we'll see you guys tomorrow.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. All right.